pleasant nights, fellow travelers along the path of the beam. I am known on this level of the tower as Jaime and Fuego, and if it please you, join me here for the return of Hail to Stephen King at his Reezy Peeps, and so very stoked to have you here. And yeah, it's been a little bit of time, but it is officially the month of September, my birth month, Sai King's birthday month, or El Rey, as I so affectionately call him. So yeah, it is a very exciting time to be a King fan, most notably because we just finished up the Institute, which I will hopefully be getting a review up of either here or on the horror show. It's not been determined between me and Cecil where exactly we're going to put that, but that just wrapped on MGM Plus. Boy, I mean, we still have 2 movies that are coming in the coming months. I'm seeing The Long Walk tomorrow evening as of this recording, over a week in advance of its September 12th release date. So that's pretty exciting. It shows that the studio has some faith in this, and I mean, between the Hunger Games director, whose name is eluding me, but J.T. Molnar, I want to say, writing the script for that one. I mean, he did such a kick-ass job with Strange Darling. He's apparently working on an adaptation of The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon, so that's exciting. And then at the beginning of November, we have Edgar Wright's The Running Man. So, and that's even after we already had, you know, there's still stuff coming with Joe, Black Phone 2, Abraham's Boys wasn't too bad. I wasn't like super jazzed about it, but you know, it was still, you know, a fairly serviceable Joe Hill adaptation. I mean, we had Never Flinch by Sai King already, Joe's book, you know, King Sorrow coming in October. So, wow, what a time, man. And what a time for King to put something interesting out. Hansel and Gretel. And so this is essentially, as you can see, it's small. It is in every way a children's book, you know. It's, you know, what, how many pages? They don't have a page count, but whatever. I mean, the audio book is actually read by Sai King himself for this. It's only like 30 minutes, you know. He does an introduction and then he reads the story. So this is essentially him taking the Grimm fairy tale from the Grimm brothers that was originally published in 1812, but, you know, from what I understand, these were stories that the Brothers Grimm collected, and, you know, the Terry Gilliam movie even pokes fun at the fact that they were kind of hack artists, you know, rest in peace, Heath Ledger, very sad in that regard, but that film was especially amusing because it kind of played up the fact that they were kind of hacks who just took all of these, you know, traditional sort of, you know, folk tales that had been passed down for generations and generations, like in the Baltic and whatever, and they're just like, ha ha ha, we're going to take advantage here, we're going to, you know, combine them all into a book, publish them, and so, but with that in mind, I mean, it makes sense that we have had so many different versions of Hansel and Gretel over the years, as far as, you know, both, you know, stage and screen and, you know, all these different things. I mean, I think the first time, the book was read to me when I was very, very little at the Phoenix Public Library. So that was my first, I was of the ripe age to hear Hansel and Gretel. You know, I was like, what, maybe 4 or 5 years old, somewhere around that range, and they used to have this weekly story time that my parents would take me to in the summer when I wasn't in school, and, you know, so maybe I guess I was like 5 or 6, because I know I was at least in kindergarten, but nevertheless, story scared the living shit out of me, as, you know, I mean, it's about a witch eating children, for God's sake, you know, so that is spooktacular stuff right there, chilled me to the bones, and, you know, even as I got older, my affinity, similar to Stephen King, to even want to do this project in the first place, teaming with Maurice Sendak, who, you know, probably most popular for Where the Wild Things Are, but, I mean, various other books, you know, children's books and stuff that he was famous for, and a very distinctive art style, as you can see just from the cover of this, without messing up my lighting too terribly, and, but, yeah, so King has a similar affinity, even at his age, you know, and I'm, you know, I crossed the 4-0 a little while ago, I hate to age myself, but, you know, and King is over 30 years, you know, my senior, and yet he still is enamored with writing these tales about, you know, adolescents and youngsters and things of that nature. And so, I mean, yeah, totally understandable that it would still be in his wheelhouse. I mean, for me, the first time I ever saw an adaptation on screen was probably Shelley Duvall's version on the Shelley Duvall Fairy Tale Theater. Now, if I remember correctly, that had, like, was it Joan Collins, maybe, who was the witch? I remember specifically Kid from Silver Spoons played Hansel, Ricky Schroeder. So, yeah, that was definitely a thing. But, I mean, dude, I even have a soft spot for the Hansel and Gretel witch hunters silliness, and you know, Oz Perkins did a really tremendous version of it just a few years ago. They, you know, reversed not only the name of the siblings and the title, but also the dynamic, you know. Sophia Lillis, I want to say. I mean, girl who played Bevy from the Levee in the most recent version of it that Andy Muschietti did. So she was Gretel, and as opposed to in the original tale where, you know, Hansel is the one who is the protector and really taking charge of the situation, they did the gender reversal in that regard, and, you know, Sophia was great in that. So I'm a big fan of what Oz Perkins did with that film, and the fact that he's just gone on to bigger success with, you know, I wasn't big on Long Legs, but, you know, he did the great adaptation of The Monkey earlier this year. So there's another King property that we had earlier this year. So 2025 for, you know, just the King family between Joe and his dad has been pretty freaking tremendous, man. But, so in any event, back to this story, though. So this was initially, so King has a very fascinating introduction in here. So, I mean, this is just what the leaflet says, everybody. So, you know, the haunting tale of two brave children lost in a great dark forest full of dangers waiting to devour them. Reimagined by literary legends Stephen King and Maurice Sendak. Let Mr. King's global bestseller and award-winning author, and Mr. Sendak, who is a Caldicorn? Is that it? Caldicotter? Anyway, you know, he won this particular medalist, you know, for Where the Wild Things Are, and, you know, guides you into the most deliciously daring rendition of this classic grim fairy tale yet. You know, that's up for debate, obviously. Art is subjective, but will you find your way back out? And, I mean, this is gorgeously illustrated. So you've got the stuff in, you know, just kind of the back leaflet area, and just, I mean, so some great black and white sort of stuff. So Maurice Sendak did all of this art, and as King actually, who has this great 2-page introduction that he also reads in this. So this was originally, as I am trying to double down, so Sendak had been working on this for, where is the info for it? It was a stage play of some sort that was being put together, and so a Humperdinck opera. So they were going to do that sort of version of it, and so Maurice did a bunch of conceptual art that, to the best of my knowledge, when I was doing a little research, this opera never ended up being completed or, you know, like got to stage or anything, but, you know, the Maurice Sendak, I guess the foundation or the family, you know, those who kind of control his estate and all of his, you know, artwork and literary offerings and whatnot, they approached Sai King about doing this. And, you know, Stephen King even mentions in the introduction about how he had used a little bit of the original Grimm tale in Rose Madder, which, you know, it's been a number of years since I read Rose Madder, so I'd forgotten about that particular bit. He does mention that here in the introduction, you know, I'm Rosie Real, you know, anyway, so King does a great job of taking this. Now, you can definitely tell that it is of King's, like, King prose distinctively. You know, it's not like he's trying to recreate some sort of, like, you know, more old English sort of vibe or anything like that. And with the Brothers Grimm being German, obviously, you know, it was ultimately translated into English anyway, so it wasn't even, you know, that original wording as the story was becoming more popularized in the Western world, at least, you know, over in North America and, you know, English-speaking parts of the world and whatnot. But yeah, you can definitely tell it is King prose, and with just some of the, just, I mean, calling them kiddos at one point, things like that. So, but, you know, King with... The reason this fits into his wheelhouse so well, as I was mentioning earlier, at least for me, is because he has written children so endearingly over the course of his entire career. I mean, whether it was The Body, adapted into Stand By Me, It, which is about to have this big resurgence, and that's another King project, my God! Welcome to Derry was just announced today, as of this recording, to be debuting on HBO Max on October 26th, so that's very exciting as well. I mean, hell of a year, as I already said, but, you know, I mean, between it and then even later on, some of the adolescent stuff, even though I can't stand the book, it's one of my least favorite King things he ever did, the youthful stuff in Dreamcatcher, some of the flashback bits, you know, with, you know, Duddits and Beaver and the rest of the gang there and everything, like, that stuff is very endearing. Like, he just has a knack for that sort of thing, and that's why this was just such a natural fit for him, in my estimation. And I mean, for those unfamiliar, he doesn't really deviate too much. He keeps it, you know, very respectful and traditional. You have the evil stepmother is in full play, as you all too often see in a lot of the Grimm tales and whatnot. But yeah, so mother of Hansel and Gretel, birth mother, has passed away, unfortunately. And so, you know, father who has remarried, has this evil stepmother of a woman who they're in the midst of this drought and famine and everything. And so the evil stepmother comes up with the idea that they need to get rid of the children ASAP, you know, just lead them into the woods and abandon them so that, you know, they have a much higher likelihood of surviving themselves. So, you know, them not being her children. She's degaffed dudes, and she is just very willing. And she has to coax the hell out of this guy, but obviously what she's bringing to the bedroom or something is what, presumably, is what, you know, kind of sways his judgment about this. But even so, he has remorse about it, as first time they lead them out, you know, and Hansel's like leaves the rock. So that, you know, it's a traditional tale. I'm not gonna like spoil anything specific, but, you know, everybody knows the setup. You know, kids get abandoned, they try to leave a trail of breadcrumbs a second time, breadcrumbs get eaten, and so they're lost in the woods, encounter this witch who eats children. I can't remember if in the original story Hansel actually has this dream of the witch, and King even mentions it in as being one of his favorite bits of artwork in the book, and I'm just going to jump to it real quick. Every single page has just gorgeous artwork all over it, but so Hansel has this dream, and I don't remember if this is in the source material, but it's in King's version, where, you know, she's got a bag full of kids that she's gonna chow down on, you know. Sorry for the brightness alteration, everybody, but so that's a thing. And then another piece that King really mentions in his introduction that he liked as far as the artwork inspiring him was this, where you see how he did this candy house, and the candy house having like this like face, like creepy quality to it, which is really interesting. So that's another thing. But I mean, yeah, I mean, just every single page has just great stuff on it. It's just so gorgeously done. Yes, our witch who initially appears like, you know, kind and loving and everything like that, and then you start to, like, the kids see her one way initially as she wants that, she's like almost glamoring them, and then, you know, her true form eventually becomes apparent. But, so yeah, and then it's about, you know, they're gonna get eaten, they're getting fattened up so that, you know, because they're like, well, that's the thing. I mean, if it's a drought and a famine and everything, these kids have barely been eating, you know, shizzle, like nothing. Of course, she has to fatten them up with all the candy in this gingerbread house, whatnot, which I've always found so funny. The fact that around, like, Christmas, we make gingerbread houses, but to the best of my knowledge, the origination of the gingerbread house was being lived in by a witch that ate kids, so that's kind of interesting. I could be wrong about that. But yeah, even just this little bit where you see the transformation of, like, because there's a bit in the story where the original visage, you know, and then it shifts over to what the home actually looks like. So just like the witch, you know, it's kind of a facade. So, I mean, it's just, even in some of the spots without, like, super detailed artwork where it's just very text heavy, you still have, like, this beautiful forestry, you know, the, like, trees and everything that surrounds the text. It is just such a gorgeously put together book. I mean, you read it in like 20 minutes or whatever. As I mentioned earlier, the audio version of this, which you can get for like $7 on Audible, you know. Some people may say, for, you know, story this short, that's pretty steep, you know. But I mean, as a completist, I have every single King book in physical form. I have to have everything in audio form as well. So yeah, so that was a very, very cool sort of thing. And I guess, you know, this is really just a pitch for any sort of hardcore King collector. I think the retail is like 20-something bucks, which, you know, once again, you may think it's a little steep, but it is going to join the other children's version of The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon, that pop-up book that I have back there. So that's pretty rad status. But Lilja's Library hinted at something on Twitter before this came out, and unfortunately it was kind of a little bit of a spoiler for me about something King does with this. And so I'm going to preface this right now because I would be remiss if I didn't at least mention it, because it's fucking cool what King did with this. It's a very tiny detail alteration, but this is your warning, everybody. This is your warning. And then I will give like another slap hands if you really, you know, don't want to. But okay, you've been warned. For tower junkies like myself, the witch in this turns out to be somebody we're all familiar with from Wizard and Glass. That's right, Rhea of the fucking Coos, man. It makes sense, doesn't it? It almost feels like it would be a no-brainer for Stephen King in Hansel and Gretel, you know, for Stephen King to make the evil witch in this who eats children Rhea? Doesn't it just, it's like, maybe I didn't think about it when I saw Lilja's, you know, giving the little hint on Twitter about how it had multiverse connections, and he's like, it's just small, but it's really clever and it makes total sense. Yeah, as I said, no-brainer for our witch in this. I'm assuming it's long after, you know, her dealings with Roland, Deschain and whatnot, and you know, his young Cotad, you know, Bert and Elaine and whatnot, but yeah, that just more so than anything, like, I was already stoked that, you know, there's this gorgeous artwork in this book, and that, you know, just King getting to jump back into a sandbox that, you know, he even mentions in the introduction that I made mention of, that, yeah, he read a lot of Maurice Sendak to his kids when he was, you know, just a young parent with, you know, him and Tabby. And so, yeah, but what a cool connection. What a nice nod for, and that's the thing. There's a lot of people who will pick this up. They won't know diddly squat about it. They're like, oh, they just gave the witch a name. Cool, whatever. Tower Junkies, on the other hand, will be like, yeah, man. So, yeah, it kind of made my day, you know, Clint Eastwood style, man. Dirty Harry, that shizzle. So that is my very brief thoughts. I guess they weren't really that brief, but, you know, I'm always long-winded when it comes to Sai King after over 300 episodes of this show, over nearly a decade at this point. But, yeah, guys, this is a super cool freaking collectible. And, yeah, Tower Junkies, much like, it's going to join the Charlie and the Choo Choo up there, too. I forgot, even beyond. So this is technically, I guess, his second children's book, but, you know, the pop-up book, you know, just being, I guess, a bridge, you know, condensation of the novella proper. But this was super cool. The artwork is gorgeous, and for King completists, or for just fans of King and the original story, this was so, so cool. But the other thing I have to mention, because this was a double delivery day from Amazon for me, so that actually just came out today. But unfortunately, I'm about 2 weeks late on this. Money's been a little tight in the summer, post-graduation, you know, with the film and media studies degree, looking for, you know, the different sort of career work and whatever besides just, you know, freelancing and YouTubing and all that other stuff. But, so this is the anthology, long awaited, entitled The End of the World as We Know It, obvious reference to the REM song, but new tales of Stephen King's The Stand, edited by Christopher Golden and Brian Keene, with an introduction by Stephen King. So this is one that I wanted to get on immediately, but then I was like, damn, do I want to reread The Stand before? And obviously that's a hell of a task with it being over a GZ and page count. Yeah, if you're going to read the uncut, which is the only one that I read at this point. And I've read the original version. Some people like the more condensed bit. I don't know, I just love those Bernie illustrations, and the new version, there's also that rad new version that I have right up there that finally came from Cemetery Dance. So, yeah, man, just extremely exciting, because The Stand is in my unholy trinity of King books. You know, Pet Sematary, It, and The Stand are my three favorites, followed by Wizard and Glass, Salem's Lot, and then, you know, it just kind of goes from there. But yeah, man, I mean, The Stand is sacred territory for me, so, and it is for King as well, and so I haven't read any of this yet, but I just received it in the mail today. I mean, you have so many different people contributing here, as I'm just taking, there's like 24 people here. I mean, Joe R. Lansdale, you've got, you know, Bev Vincent, Paul Tremblay, I mean, Chuck Wendig, I mean, some real heavy-hitting names. I'm kind of sad Joe didn't write one in this, but I guess he's very much about kind of forging his own path and whatnot, aside from, you know, Nosferatu, where he put in all the multiverse sort of combinations, making it very apparent that, you know, his stuff took place in the same multiverse as his dad's, but he kind of backpedaled on that a little bit with everything that he did thereafter, but boy was it super cool when he initially did that. So this will be the next major undertaking, because the page count is hefty on this. This shit is almost, yeah, it's creeping towards 800 pages, so this is one that is going to take some serious dedication and time. I'm not sure if I want to go story by story, or maybe I'll do a short video counting down maybe, I don't know, my 11 favorites or something like that. Spinal Tap 2 coming in less than 2 weeks now. But yeah, so maybe my 11 or 6 favorites or something like that, or maybe just a brief overview of the book. I'm not sure, but it is definitely going to be an upcoming episode of Hail to Stephen King sometime here in the month of September when I get through all of these stories. So that is extremely exciting. And this is another one with a pretty hefty, I think it's like $35 for the list price. You can get it on Amazon for 20-something bucks, which is another reason why I ended up just combining my shipping together. This and you know, the Hansel and Gretel book. So that's a double dose of King. That was extremely exciting. So, yeah, guys, that is pretty much getting us all caught up on all things El Rey. So very stoked to have had you here. And yeah, I extend a grande gracias. I've been Jaime and Fuego. You can find Wa on all social media sectors, TweeterX, Instagram, Facebook, you know, for those who still, I mean, I still have the Hail to Stephen King Facebook group on there that I try to make some time for anytime there's a big King story. But, you know, so many people have fragmented in the socials, whether you're on Discord, whether you're on Reddit, whether you're on, I mean, who knows, but obviously here on my personal Enfuegotainment YouTube, I do primarily out of the theater shorts, you know, just short reviews of things that are not necessarily of the spectacular variety, still very much a part of the horror show. Going to be reviewing The Long Walk, as I said at the beginning of this video, this week, over a week before it comes out, which is supremely exciting. Yeah, just any sort of comments about this, if you have checked out the book, if you really dug the little reference, a little tie-in to the tower, because I loved it, I loved it, I loved it. It warmed my heart. So yeah, I guess that's going to be it, everybody. Once again, September 12th is when you can check out The Long Walk in theaters based on the Richard Bachman book. So very exciting. That is the next big King thing coming. And yeah, everyone, until the Wheel of Ka comes around once more, hasta luego, sin amigos! Constant readers and viewers alike say thank you. I hope we have been well met and that we share more of this palaver sooner rather than later. And, you know, in a shout out to Cecil and the rest of the horror show brethren, remember, stay scared and, yeah, obviously, read Stephen King.